Had to wipe a tear from my eye and take a minute before we started today because the producer showed me a video of a little boy in Italy, in Rome, when the Pope was doing a thing. It looked like it was like the public square on a smaller scale, right? It looked like he was holding that. I didn't ask you what that was. Do you remember?
They didn't say, but it looked like school.
Yeah, it looked like he was making an appearance where there wasn't a huge crowd. It was kind of a personal, mostly kids, maybe at a school, where you could kind of get a one-on-one. It looked like, you know what it looked like? It looked like waiting in line for Santa Claus at the department store. That's what it looked like. It was cute, and he was making a real personalized attempt to touch the people. And a little kid got in line and couldn't ask his question because he was crying. I'm going to cry talking about it probably, but he couldn't ask his question because he choked him up. And he was probably, 6, 8 years old. He was a little dude. And the Pope invited him up to whisper it in his ear because he couldn't say it out loud on the microphone. And right there, you're just like, oh, I'm dying because the kid, he's just choking up. He can't say his question. And so he goes up and he whispers in the Pope's ear. It took a couple of minutes. He talked to him, and the Pope whispered back in his ear, and the crowd is all touched. And, gives him a hug when he comes up, and he gives him a hug when he leaves, and the kid goes back to his seat, and he's still crying. And then the Pope, explains that the kid gave him permission to talk about it to the public, so he told everybody what it was. And what it was that the kid's dad was an atheist, and the kid was worried. His dad had just died, and he was worried that his dad wasn't in heaven, and how was the Pope have to say about that? That was what was on his mind, and you can understand why he'd be crying. The Pope was magnanimous and genuine, and he made the kid feel good. And if you listen to the video, he answers the question pretty well without answering it, I think. And a big part of it is that the dad, being an atheist, still baptized his kids, likely because the mom wasn't an atheist and she was a Catholic Italian and wasn't going to stand for not. Or, who knows? Maybe dad was just one of those hedge your bets guys. My kids can't make this decision, so why not, do this for them, and then they can deny it later if they don't want to, like I did. Whatever, who knows? But the point was, he did baptize his kids, even though he was an atheist, and the Pope mentioned that as part of the part that God would got to be particularly pleased with that, and it was sly because you could read that as well. Even though he might be lost to hell, his kids could still be saved, and that was going to please God, even from an atheist. But also that the child had mentioned that his father was a good man and it was good to him, and the Pope had said that that was a nice thing that the child was able to say that his father was a good man. And do you think, he said to the crowd, did the Pope, do you think that God would keep a man like that away from his son? And of course the crowd says no, and the Pope is like, come on, say it, say it with me. And the crowd's like, no. And of course the Pope's like, of course not, there's your answer. So, in a way he didn't answer, is my dad in heaven? He didn't really answer that directly, but he, in a very savvy Solomon-like way, he impressed the crowd and made the kid feel good, and likely made some atheists feel good. And it was a touching video. There's no way around it. The kid is got his emotions laid bare, and the Pope made him feel good. And I'm not a guy who pays attention to what the Pope does until he does something like dismantle the church. The shit that he does isn't really going to matter to me all that much. So he needs to do something real to really move the church forward if he's going to be the Pope everyone says he is. But he's clearly a decent man. I don't think he gets to be the Pope by being, outwardly crooked. I guess maybe I'm naive. I've never been that atheist who thinks, that all the cardinals everywhere are creeps and princes of doom who are, all in it for their own good. I think most of them are probably decent guys who work their way up in their job hierarchy and trying to do the right thing by the people. By and large, is my take. But I don't watch what the Pope is about a lot or what he does and all the reforms and all the. To me, it's like, he's got to do most of that stuff to stay relevant at all. So if he's any kind of a leader, he's got to start being happy with homosexuals to come back to the congregation. He's got to start, making some liberal reforms. And apparently he's pretty decent at doing some of that. So, kudos to him for being able to sidestep that issue in a way that was charming and helpful, I think, in the moment. A great PR job, great for the kid. When the kid gets older, he'll probably be like, I wonder what he really said. But for now, it was a nice moment, a touching video. I don't have a lot of snark to say about it other than, great for him. So he's a good politician, pope, and a nice guy. Let's see him break out some of the money that he's sitting on for the victims of abuse that are still waiting for some restitution for what can never really be paid for. Let's be honest. Among other things, when are priests going to be able to marry? Again, my finger's not on the pulse of Catholicism, but I think in order for that church to keep remaining relevant, they're still going to have to get modern. Happy with what they've done, but one nice kissy job with one kid, not quite what we need to see from the Catholic Church in general. So good job, Pope, whatever your name is. Your Italian was cool. It was fairly easy to listen to and learn a little Italian. And you seem like a cool guy, but let's think hard about the real stuff that the Catholic Church needs to take care of instead of maybe excusing atheists for using their common sense.